This is the last part of the second Perek of Pirkei Avot. Again, this is Pirkei Avot Perek Bet, Mishnah Yud Aleph through Tet Zayin, the remainder of the second Perek. We left off in Mishnah Yud with some of the statements of the students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. The Mishnah and Mishnah Yud tells us that they each of the students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said three things. These were lessons they either often repeated to their own students or mottos they lived by. So we were up to Mishnah Yud Aleph. Mishnah Yud Aleph is the statement of Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Yoshua Omer, Ayin Hara, Yetzer Hara, Sinat Habriot, Motzian et Adam min Olam. Rabbi Yoshua said, an Ayin Hara. What is an Ayin Hara? An Ayin Hara is a bad eye, literally. And what it means is, in our context, it means when you're dissatisfied at what you have and you look at things negatively, or you're actually looking at other people with a negative eye, with a bad eye, like looking at them negatively. Yetzer Hara, which is physical desires. Your Yetzer Hara to do physical things, derive physical pleasure. Sinat Habriot, hatred for other man. Motzian et Adam min Olam, take person out of the world. So this line, takes people out of the world, has a literal meaning and a figurative. So literally, it can mean that if it can take a person out of the world, it can kill you. You can die early if you're always looking negatively at what you have or what other people have, and you hate everyone, and you always have this major, and you always hate everyone. So you either become depressed, or you'll have people want to hate you back, and they'll try to kill you or something bad, or they'll try to ruin your life. And if you're always following your physical pleasures, you can get sick, whether it's overeating or other pleasures that you follow, you can get sick from. So that's what's literally these things. If you don't change your attitude towards life or your character traits, you can die early. Also, it can have more of a figurative meaning removed from the world, the spiritual world. That if you have an Ayin Hara, if you always look negatively about everything in the world, you follow your physical desires, and if you're not a person who has loving kindness to other man, you'll be taken out of the world. You won't have a place in the world to come. It's more of a spiritual meaning. So what is the connection between these three things? Ayin Hara, Yetzer Hara, and Sinat Habriot. So some suggest that there's actually a link between all of them. Ayin Hara is when you're always looking at everything you have as not being enough, or everything other people have as being, why this person get this, he doesn't deserve it. So you'll come to try to build yourself up by following physical pleasures. Like if you're upset, my friend has this and I want it, and then you say, oh, I'm going to try to just drive a pleasure for myself. I'll go eat a ton of food so I'll feel better about myself. So you won't actually get the pleasure. You'll still look negatively at what you have and negatively at what he has, and you'll end up hating him. You have Sinat Habriot. So some people say that's the connection between all three of these maxims, these three ideas of Ayin Hara, Yetzer Hara, and Sinat Habriot. Mishnah Yud Bet. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Yehem Mamon Chavercha Chaviv Alecha Kishalcha. He said three things again. The first one being, the money of your friend should be beloved to you as if it is your own. What does it mean? It means that this comes, probably stems from the commandment of Ahavta l'recha kavocha. You should love your neighbor as yourself. So not only do you have to love your neighbor in a sense of being not practical, but practically, the Mishnah is telling us you have to love your friend as yourself by taking the proactive measure and caring about his property. Whether it's someone lends you something, you have to be extra careful and care for yourself. Or you see something on the floor, you should pick it up and be extra careful because it's someone else's and you should care about it. If you see someone lost something, you should care about it. That really stems from Ahavta l'recha kamocha. The second thing Rabbi Yossi said is Hitzchen atzmacha lo mo Torah she'ena yerusha lach. You should prepare yourself to learn Torah because it is not something that's inherited by you. Meaning you need to learn. Hitkin means apply yourself. You have to apply yourself to learning because you don't inherit the Torah. What this is alluding to is that sometimes you have a son of a Talmud Chacham, so think, my father's a Talmud Chacham, but now I'm going to inherit his, his wisdom or his capabilities. The Mishnah of Yossi is telling you it's not true. You have to really apply yourself to the study of Torah because it's not just handed down generation to generation naturally. You have to work on it. And the last thing is it's called Masecha Yulashim Shamayim. All of our actions should be to Shem Shamayim for the sake of heaven. And many of the commentators see what he's alluding to is not only are your spiritual actions for the sake of heaven and not for other reasons, like you should learn Torah because God said so and not because you want to only do well on a test, or you should daven, you should pray well, because it's for Hashem and not because of the fact that you want people to notice that you're davening nicely. But he says even your mundane activities should be for the purpose of serving a greater purpose, or your spiritual purpose of connecting with God. So if you're going to go to sleep, you should think, if obviously you're going to think because of your physical needs, you should say the reason I'm going to sleep is because going to sleep allows me to wake up early to go pray to Hashem, which is one of my spiritual needs. The next Mishnah Yud Gimel, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Havi Zahir b'kriyat Shema u'b'tfilah. Rabbi Shimon said one should be extra careful about davening Kriyat Shema and Tefillah. What does that mean? It means you should be careful because these things have a time requirement, and one has to be extra careful to make sure to daven, to pray Shemon Esrei and Shema at the right times. Meaning, if you so Kriyat Shema, the last time to say Kriyat Shema sometimes can be very early, and sometimes the earliest time you can say Shemon Esrei can be early, and you should make sure to say it every day on time and not miss that opportunity. Then he continues, though, with a very interesting comment. Ukesha'ata mitpalel al ta'as tfilatcha keva el rachamim detachanunam lefnei makom baruchu. And he quotes a pasuk, Shenamar ki chanon v'rachum hu erach apayim baruch chesed v'nichem al hara. So Rabbi Shimon continues. First he told you have to make sure to daven on time. Then he says, and when you do daven, make sure your davening is not keva. Keva means fixed. Fixed meaning permanent. So what does it mean permanent? Permanent every day, daily, by rote. Some commentators say kava is like a burden. So you should make sure that your prayer is not like a burden or like a by rote fixed routine. Rather, what should your prayers be? El rachamim v'tachanunam l'fnei hamakom baruchu. Rather, they should be filled with mercy or asking for mercy and supplication or asking. Filled with emotion in front of Hashem, as it says in the pasuk in Yoel, Shenamar, Ki chanan v'rachum hu erach apayim v'rav chesed v'nichem al hara'ah. For God is gracious and compassionate, He's slow to anger, He has an abundance of kindness, and is reluctant to punish. He's relenting, often He'll relent on punishing us. So what does this mean? It means that God is willing to give us rachamim and chanan if we ask for it, if we pray for it. So that's what he's saying. He's saying when you daven, you should make sure, when you pray, you should make sure that your davening is not just by rote and technical, rather it's full of emotion. So what's interesting is the first two comments, Havi Zahir b'kriyat Shema Tefillah and Kish'at mitpal al ta'as tfilat keva, is actually the paradox of communal structured prayer. Because prayer is structured, it's every day, it's daily, it's routine, yet at the same time you're supposed to have a feeling of spontaneity, a feeling of emotion and meaning, and that's what he's alluding to, this paradox of make sure you daven every day, don't miss it, make sure you get there on time, but at the same time when you do daven, make sure that it's full of meaning and has a purpose. And then he ends off his Mishnah, the al tehei rasha b'fnei atzmecha, and you should make sure that you are not wicked to yourself. So this also has a double meaning. Some commentators say al tehei rasha b'fnei atzmecha. You shouldn't treat yourself as if you're bad. Meaning sometimes when you say you're doing bad things, you'll actually, even if you don't do it, or I'm a bad person, you'll end up being a bad person because that'll get into your mindset. And some people say it's al tehi rasha b'fnei atzmecha. Some commentators say it means don't do bad things to yourself. Meaning treat yourself properly. Don't do bad things that'll harm yourself both physically and spiritually. The next Mishnah is the comment of Rabbi Lazar, Mishnah Yudalad. Rabbi Lazar Havishakos lilmod Torah. You should be shakud in your study of Torah. Shakud could have two meanings. Either it could be constantly studying Torah, or it could be you should run to learn Torah. You should have excitement for learning Torah. Second comment is Vida Masha Tashiv Lapikores. You should know how to respond to an apikores. So an apikores is a heretic, and the etymology or the root of the word apikores comes from either the word hefker, which means ownerless, and ownerless could mean either he has no owner, he views himself as there being no God, or it could be ownerless that he doesn't, he's, not ownerless that he has no owner, but he's dismissed things. Like when you're dismissed, when you're not an owner, you say, I'm mafkir my property. I say this property does not belong to me anymore. He's mafkir the entire Torah. He's mafkir his belief in God. He throws it away and says, I don't need to believe in these things anymore. And his last comment is Vidal lifnei miyata amel. And you should know who you're working for. All your study of Torah is for someone. You're working for someone. And then he says, and you know you're working for someone, you should know that this person you're working for is Neman hu ba'al malachtich shishalim l'schar pulatich. You should know that the person you're working for, obviously Hashem, he's the one you're toiling for. He is someone who is keep count on that he'll pay you back. He's a Neman hu. He is you should know that your employer is someone who will pay you back for all of your work, and he'll make sure to pay you back in full. When we're talking about paying you back, is someone who will pay you back for your reward. He'll give you a reward in the world to come for all your endeavors. So it's interesting that some commentators point out what is the connection between Shakat Lilmod Torah, Dama Shetashiv La'apikores, and Da Lifnei Miyat Amel. You should run to learn Torah. You should respond to a heretic, know how to respond to a heretic, and also you should know for whom you're toiling for. So there's two approaches in the commentaries. One person says it's important to learn Torah, because by learning Torah, two things can be accomplished. One, you'll know how to respond to a heretic, and two, you'll also, by learning Torah, the study of Torah, a lot of times will push someone to having more of a belief in God. So he's saying you should learn Torah and learn it well, and by doing so, one, you'll be able to respond to a heretic and defend God's honor, and two, you yourself will have your own personal growth. That's one approach. Another approach is given by the Rambam that he says, Havishaka lil matorah masha tashalat bikoras, that you should study Torah really well in order to respond to an apikoras, in order that you should respond to him. By studying Torah well, it will enable you to respond to defend the honor of Hashem. And the Rambam says also when you have to engage in this dialogue with an apikoras, it can lead a person to have, thoughts like, am I doing the right thing? Is there a greater purpose? So Rabbi Elazar reinforces this by saying, Vidal lifnei miyata amel. Know who you're working for, that you really are, even though the heretic says there is no God, you know that I'm working for God, and in the end, he'll pay me back. The last two Mishnah actually are very famous. Rabbi Tarfo and Omer, they're both statements of Rabbi Tarfo. Rabbi Tarfo and Omer, Mishnah Tedvav, Hayom Katzer v'malacha meruba v'polim atzelim v'aschar harbe u'balabayit dochek, which means the Rabbi Tarfo said the day is short, the task is abundant, there's a huge task in front of you, the laborers, the workers are often lazy, but you should know the reward is great, and the master of the house will always pay you back. The master of the house is dochek, he's insistent, he makes you work hard. So again, what it means is the day is short, there's a lot of work to do, the workers can be lazy, but there's a tremendous amount of reward, and the balabayit, the master of the house, your employer, gives you a lot of work, and he forces you to work hard. So this Mishnah obviously is not talking about day laborers who are working on building a house or anything of that nature. Rather, what it's talking about is the study of Torah. And he's saying, and your work is serving Hashem. There's a lot to do, there's a lot of Torah, there's a lot of mitzvot to do, but the day is short. This world, our life in this world is very short. There's not much time. Our days are filled with a lot of activities, but still there's so much Torah to study, and yet we oftentimes can be lazy. I don't think it means we're lazy in the sense that we sit around and do nothing, but oftentimes we don't take full advantage of our time, and we should realize that there's a tremendous amount of reward for this, and that God demands this of us, that we are studying Torah as much as we can. The last Mishnah was made famous, I think, by the Zionist movement, but from the context of this Mishnah, it really has nothing to do with Zionism. The Mishnah says, Hu haya omer. Rabbi Tarfon used to say, Lo alacha hal malacha ligmor. It is not upon you to finish the work. V'lo ata ben chorin lebata mimena. You're not required to finish the work, but you're not a ben chorin, you're not a free person to withdraw from working. So, if you look here at the Mishnah Tetvav, malacha clearly means, malacha clearly is a reference to spiritual needs, or most probably the study of Torah. That's what almost every commentator says. And here he says, v'lo alacha hal malacha ligmor. So malacha here obviously is referring to the same thing. The work, the study of Torah, you don't have to finish the entire Torah, study of Torah. It's too much. It's a tremendous amount for most people to accomplish. But still, you shouldn't say there's no way I could accomplish it. So that's what, it's not a reference to the reconstruction of Jewish homeland in Israel or any other communal endeavors that people like quoting. I mean, out of context, you can use it for that, but simply in context, it's a reference to the study of Torah and your spiritual needs and doing mitzvah. Then he continues, and it's again talking about Torah. In Lamadata Torah Harbe, Not L'Mechas Harbe. If one studies a lot of Torah, you'll get a lot of reward. The Neman Hu Baal Malachtachik Sheishalim Lecha Schar Pulatich. And you should know that the Baal Malachtachik, your boss, can be trusted to pay you back for all your work, even though you might not see these rewards in this lifetime. One of our tenets of belief is that there's reward and punishment, and we believe that God will pay us back for all our work. And what everyone should realize and think about the incredible reward that will come to people in the world to come. Well, righteous men have reward in this world; they'll have it in the world to come. So again, these are the last couple of Mishnah of the second Perek of Masechet Brakot, of Pirkei Avot.